So there was a story that went viral about how Trump's administration is literally separating parents from their kids when they cross the border. And beyond that, immigration officials even lost 1,500 kids. And then they had the nerve to say that they're somehow not legally responsible when they lost kids. So this is just a bizarre and disgusting story all around. I mean, the idea you're separating families like that really is just, it's heartless, it's cold, it's inhumane, and it's immoral and unethical. So that shouldn't be happening in the first place. But then the fact that they have the incompetence to just lose 1,500 kids, they know they can't account for where they are. I mean, Jesus, man. You know, human trafficking is a thing that still exists. It's not like it's been eradicated. And that could be what happened with many of these kids. We don't know. We simply don't know. And it's hard to wrap your mind around the fact that something this serious and this big of a screw-up can happen. But I guess when you look at it through the context of they don't really care about these people, that you can actually see how it happens. And that's, the problem with ICE, for example. There's been calls now on the left, and I think it makes sense, for ICE to be abolished. Now, you might say, well, what? I don't get it. You're going to get rid of, immigration officials who deal with that issue? It's not like there's no issue with immigration. But I think ICE was created in 2003. And if I'm not mistaken, it was with, the Patriot Act or something. So it's not... this is one of the things that happens all the time. The government will create this insane new bureaucracy, and then, it's viewed as a radical idea to get rid of it when it was just created. And it's not like they're doing good work. I mean, how many times have we covered stories of them? I mean, they've literally gone into hospitals and taken out brain tumor patients and deported them or held them in custody. It's this is the shit that they're doing? Listen, don't get me wrong. If there's an undocumented immigrant who is a violent criminal, am I okay with deporting that person? Yes. But what we're seeing nowadays is they're not just deporting the violent criminals. They're not just deporting the non-violent criminals. They're deporting virtually everybody. In fact, Trump signed an executive order that said you can deport. You don't have to prioritize criminals to deport. You could just deport anybody who's undocumented. We have no problem with that whatsoever, ripping apart families and things of that nature. And Obama wasn't much better. Obama actually deported more than Trump did in his last year compared to Trump's first year. And there were still many people who were not criminals who were deported under Obama. So this is monstrous stuff for sure. Separating the families is just, it's hard to wrap your mind around that kind of evil. Could you imagine being a mother and not knowing where, your 7-year-old kid is? It's unfathomable. So this is where the story takes a weird turn. Take a look at what a CNN reporter said about this. First photos of separated migrant children at holding facility. And you can see that they're literally caged like animals. So, I mean, they look like dogs at a shelter or something. They're on a hard floor and they're behind cages. I mean, that's really totally inhumane. But then, look at what happens next. The CNN reporter says, deleted previous tweet because gave impression of recent photos. They're from 2014. Well, that's strange. I don't understand. Is it now all of a sudden it's not a story because it was from 2014? That's still a very, very important story. But see, this is almost like a perfect crystallization of a problem that many people have pointed out, which is when you have a Democratic president, and that Democratic president says the right things, gives nice speeches, appears like a nice person, oftentimes that puts a mask over the true face of the empire and over the true devastating and disgusting policies that are implemented. And so a lot of people pointed that out in response to that CNN reporter, whoa, wait, hold on. So just because those pictures were a little older, now you're deleting it and acting like there's no story here. There's still a goddamn story there. So, and by the way, the Trump administration is trying to deflect and say, well, hey, the Democrats started this policy. I don't know if they started it. I do know that they've had barbaric immigration policies. I know that yours are also barbaric, maybe even slightly worse. But if you're against them, then fucking end the policy. But what you have is just a partisan football going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, where you're the problem. No, you're the problem. But the policies are odious under every administration. So why don't you fucking fix the policy? And when you have the mainstream media saying, oh, big story, look at how these immigrants are being treated, this is totally wrong. But then you learn that the picture was from 2014, all of a sudden now you delete it? I mean, I guess if I'm putting a positive spin or trying to interpret what they did kindly, all she's saying is, hey, I gave the impression it was new and it's not new. That's why I'm deleting it. But all you need to do is add, a follow-up tweet in the same thread and say, picture is from 2014. So this happened under the Obama administration, and it's still an important story. In fact, the ACLU and other human rights groups did a report, I think it was from 2009 to 2014, about the terrible treatment of immigrants at detention facilities. So it's still a story, and a very important story. You don't just delete it when you learn it happened under a Democratic president. Take a look at this next tweet. This sheds some light on exactly what we're talking about here. Renee Denfeld says, the ACLU report on ICE torturing children, is from 2009 to 2014. The tearing away of babies from moms has been going on for years. We can't blame Trump for this. We need to confront our acceptance of atrocity when the good guys are in charge. And then Michael Tracy says, main problem with coverage of ICE's conduct, much of it no doubt atrocious, is its portrayal as a Trump-specific issue rather than a systemic U.S. government issue. See, that's the thing that frustrates leftists, is that when all of these stories are covered through the lens of, oh my God, isn't Trump a monster? What you're doing is setting up a political circumstance that as soon as Trump is gone, everybody's going to act like everything's fixed automatically. And that is just lazy, sloppy, incorrect thinking. That's not true. Because when you get rid of Trump, you're still left with the fundamental political circumstances and economic circumstances that brought us Trump in the first place. So Obama was doing a lot of these terrible immigration policies. When it comes to bombings overseas, Obama was terrible on that front. When it comes to NSA spying, Obama was terrible on that front. So you can go down a list. I'm not saying everything he did was bad, but a lot of the stuff he did was bad. And if all of this is covered in the context of, oh my God, isn't Trump a monster? Well, then basically you're going to have everybody declare victory in their head as soon as Trump is gone, and that's not an actual victory, because what matters in politics is policy. So if the policies remain, well, then we have a fucking problem now, don't we? But the media acts like, no, pin it all on him, and then once we get rid of him, finally we can breathe a sigh of relief as a nation. And that's the fucking problem, man. That's a giant, giant problem. So just, the only advice I could give people is just keep your eye on the ball. That's what it really boils down to. Keep your eye on the ball. Take a look at what the policies are under both administrations, under all administrations, at all times, and then that's how you evaluate what's happening in the world and what you're okay with and what you're not okay with. But this lazy thinking of like, oh my God, it's Trump and it's all Trump. Well, what you can do right now is say, hey man, you're the administration in charge. Fix this. Fix this. I'm totally fine with that. In fact, I encourage that. But what I'm not okay with is this kind of bullshit the media did where, and this, by the way, CNN was not the only one. It was others too, who tweeted these pictures and then people were like, that's from like 2014 or, before Trump. And then they're like, oh, sorry. And then they delete it like there's no story. No, there's still a fucking story. There's still a story. In fact, the story is even more extreme in this circumstance because it would be, the scenario is, oh my God, Trump's a monster with immigrants because he is, but so was Obama and the Democrats. So how about we prod both parties to get better on this issue. It's a goddamn shame that people are more partisan than clear thinking when it comes to such important issues where people's lives are at stake.